That's what my goal is, to work on letting go of perfection and allowing myself to fail. That sounds so bad.
Yeah, it's
Fail.
important though.
Yeah.
It's so important
I know.
to continue to elevate.
And also, like, I think about that, like what you're saying, like the perfect girlfriend, the perfect employee, the perfect mother, the perfect fiance,
The perfect writer.
the perfect writer. And the thing is this: what even does that mean besides whatever your perception of it is, the perception or your reality that you impose on it, right? Because if you ask 10 different people, what does the perfect macaroni look like? Everybody's going to give you a different description. You're going to get a different recipe. You're going to get different bake times, temperatures, all of that, right? Quantities, blah, blah, blah. You might be like, what kind of, should it be in a rectangle or a circle, right? Everybody's going to give you something different. So, really, perfection is something that you made up in your head.
Yep, it's my standard.
It is your standard that you created, that you made up. It has nothing to do with reality. You know what I mean? It's not reality. It really is like a limiting belief, a self imposed limitation.
All right, we're here live for episode 5. Hey! We got a special guest in the house, 7 months old, Asen. Yeah, hey, he's awake. Our viewers may not know this, but he's usually sleeping, and we have him here. And then he typically wakes up, when the podcast is done.
over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the vibrant energy, he just wakes up. But he wanted to be with Daddy today, so yeah, I'm so excited. Acceptance part 2. We decided for the viewers that we were going to go a little bit deeper into acceptance, and I think it's super important that we do that, because in all the reflection of growth and development and finding yourself, I feel like it's all revolved around acceptance. Accepting who you are, accepting who other people are, accepting your traumas, accepting the feelings that come with those traumatic events, accepting your triggers, your internal triggers, right? You have to accept things for them to be brought to your awareness. Because if you're declining them and not accepting them, then you're like in a shell, right? Well, not right, but avoiding word hierarchy. Y'all love it, But couple things that I want to talk about today, and just making sure the audience, that you guys hold us accountable. I informed you that I asked Anthony, our oldest son, what does he want, what does he need from his dad, in order for me to support him. Like, how can I be a supportive father in your lens, and how can I, love you unconditionally and guide you? So, yesterday, was it 2 days ago?
It was yesterday.
So Anthony and I, he's trying to get his hair cut, right? And he scheduled it tomorrow, 2:00. Like, no, bro. Like, we got podcasts. I have 4 meetings tomorrow. Mom's gonna be at work. It's not gonna happen. And he likes getting his hair cut, right? So I make a couple phone calls. Nope, no go, no go, no go. Call my guy Ron. Like, hey, can you get Anthony in? And it's like what, 4:00, 3:00, late in the afternoon, knowing you really can't get in to a barber shop, within 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. So Ron, like, man, yeah, come in at 6:20, bro. It's gonna be my last cut. Send family group text. Be there at 6:20. Great. Anthony and I head out, and I'm talking to Ant. And Ant doesn't like, for those of you guys who don't know my son, he doesn't like to go super deep. You know what I mean? He's more surface level. Yeah, you know your brother. He doesn't go super deep, and I think because he doesn't like to go super deep, that's why sometimes I feel disconnected, right? Or I don't, I don't view myself as being, a supportive father, or like giving him what he needs. So I was like, Ant, like, I just want to follow up with you on that question I asked you. He's like, what's that? I'm like, what do you want? What do you need? Like, when I say, what do you want? What do you need? What do you want from me as your father to be a supportive father? And what do you need from me for you to see me as a great dad? Because it's very important to me that I am a great father, not only from my lens, but from your lens. And I want to support you, not just from my lens, but from your lens. And I told him, like, because my views of support, is helping you be in reality, explaining different paths and all these other things. And Keenan, he looks at me, he was like, oh, Pops, everything you do. I'm like, what does that mean? He was like, well, Pops, like, yeah, it's easy. You just you just do everything you do like that. You support. You're a great father. You're very supportive. And I didn't in that moment. I didn't show emotion, right? But I was talking to Andrea and I was talking to Alicia, and it was really eye opening to me, and I cried in the kitchen with Andrea, and it just goes to show, like, just because you have different values or beliefs, right, on different levels. I'm like so hard on myself, and I'm so competitive with myself to be the best that I've realized that I lack self compassion in fathering Anthony, and just to hear that validation, right? To hear that, man, you are a great father. Like, you do support me. Like, there's nothing you have to change. And me, I'm looking for like specifics. I'm looking for deep emotions, like, because that's my jam. But and Alicia and I were talking about it, so it was interesting. And to communicate all the things I do with Anthony it would take too much time. But I want to definitely let the audience know that I had that follow-up conversation with Anthony, and it was just eye-opening. It was refreshing to accept how he sees me. Yeah, it was a beautiful moment. Close that story, right?
Okay.
I want to talk about some trauma, and Andrea had some realizations with her trauma, and I shared this with you over the phone, Kina, when I was talking. Remember that day I called you and I said, thank you for encouraging me to figure out more of Andrea's love language with words of affirmation. Remember? And I called you and I was giving you some more words of affirmation over the phone. And you were like, babe, like, I don't want to cry right now, babe. Like, but, and it was derived, it wasn't derived from podcast 2, which again, we're never going to talk about again. But like the mastery and the excellence, and we when we were on the phone changed that into perfection, right? I think they're all different. I think mastery, excellence, and perfection, they have similar meanings depending on your word hierarchy, but I feel like they are different. But we transitioned the conversation to perfection, and Andrea shared some really beautiful things about how she carries herself and her past and that level of perfection that she holds herself up to and how she feels. So I think when we're talking about trauma, I would love for Andrea to share just her view of perfection and what you strive to do in the way you live and where that's derived from.
Okay, well, we did say we weren't going to talk about podcast number 2, but we have to go back to that because that's where that came from.
Yeah.
The acceptance piece of that podcast. And last week I told you guys that, and I told Keenan and Andrew that I accepted that podcast. And Andrew was like, well, I'd like to know, like, what emotions derived from that podcast. Like, what made you feel the way you did, that you didn't want to post it or share it and all of these things. And I was like, okay, I'll go home and I'll reflect and see. And so I did journal. And so based off of my definition of what acceptance was, I totally did not accept the podcast. And I'll tell you that my definition was embracing or receiving all of people, things, or situation in their normal state without the need or desire to change them or alter them to my own standard, which is perfection for me. And that podcast did not give me perfection vibes. And when I talk about perfections, it reminds me of like flaws. Like, I don't want to be flawed. Anything that I touch, I want it to be, perfect. Yeah. And so if I have to rewrite a paper 8 to 10 times, I'm going to rewrite a paper. If I have to rehearse what I'm going to say in an interview 25 times, I'm going to rehearse it 25 times until I get that down packed. And I think that a lot of that derived from like growing up. I knew that whenever I made mistakes, whether it was at home, whether it was at school, whether it was in friendships, I felt like I was loved less or
Conditional love?
That's it. I felt like there was a limit put on how people loved me and how people viewed me. So if I made a mistake, then they would turn off their love for me. Like, I don't want somebody that can flip on a switch to determine how they love me based off of my behaviors or my shortcomings or any of that. And so everything that I do, whether it's, like I said, from work to school to parenting, I try to be perfect. And I know that perfect doesn't exist in our world, but that's what I strive for. And I'm working through that. I don't want to feel less than. I don't want to feel unimportant. I don't want to feel like I'm inadequate or like I can't, yeah.
Real quick, I love that you use the word inadequate. And just so our audience can, understand how Andrea got here, we were on the phone and she was like, "Bae, I've been doing some journaling, right? Like you've been writing down, you've been doing your shadow work. Like, where is this, perfection and acceptance? Like, why am I not accepting these things? Oh, I'm a perfectionist. Why am I a perfectionist?" And those conversations that we have on the phone, just almost like when Kino referred in a couple episodes ago about trading in tokens for love. You did wonderful, perfect things, you got a token. And as soon as you made a mistake, they just shut you out and dismissed you. So then that created an upbringing where you felt like you always had to be perfect because you never wanted to be dismissed, through your words, through your actions, through anything. And when we were talking about, not feeling good enough or being disappointed and embarrassed, when you said I felt inadequate. I haven't Googled inadequate or DuckDuckGo inadequate yet, but inadequate to me was such a powerful word that you used to describe, when you were flawed or viewed as not being a perfectionist, you were inadequate. I felt like there's such extremes, right? To go from a perfectionist to being inadequate. Like if someone were like, "Drew, you're inadequate," I would be like, "What?" Like I might, you know what I mean? No, I think those are boxing words. You know what I'm saying? That's like dope and inadequate, completely different meanings. But yeah, I'm very grateful and thankful to have that conversation with you, and it's really, it's a beautiful thing to know where that was derived from. And I think that a lot of people come from that type of upbringing where they feel like they're conditionally loved, and if they're not perfect, then they're going to be dismissed. And how we accept that in that moment if you can't change it, right? But then, how do you accept the fact that that's not how you have to live? You don't have to live that standard anymore.
Well, I'm listening to what y'all are saying, and there's a lot of things that I'm thinking, but one thing for now is when I think about inadequate, like when you was like, if somebody ever said you're inadequate, and I wonder to myself, is inadequate something that anybody else ever does impose on somebody, or is inadequate something that we always impose on ourselves? You know what I mean?
It's probably an internalization.
Right, because it's like when and where, like somebody might be like, you're not meeting my my standards, you're not meeting my needs, you're not meeting my expectations, but it doesn't. No one ever says like you're inadequate, right? No one. That's something that I think happens
Internally
from self to self, right? Instead of from one to the other. When you were talking about perfectionism and whatnot, and I know how my thought process has evolved around that as well, and I think about how it goes back to childhood and how I think, and I don't know, y'all let me know what you think, but to me, I'm starting to think that children who was raised under the same type of context that you're talking about, like being like, you have to earn my love and validation, right? Or that's how we internalized what considered love, having our cup filled up by our caregivers. And I think that set us up to become people who are very accountable, people who are very self-critical, people who are high achievers. Do you know what I mean? And so if you look at people who are high achievers, and not everybody, but many of us who are high achievers, who might be very successful, who might be very accountable, very self-critical, we also have that side note, that side piece, that plate probably comes with the side of insecurity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that insecurity, because I was working through this earlier today. Like I was like thinking to myself, like, wow, I can be all of these things and still be insecure. Because I told you all about conversation I had last week where I had to admit to myself and then to the other person, like, well, I was insecure. And it's like, and I had to ask myself, how can I be all of these things and then still be insecure? But I was like, but acceptance was, I was like, well, I think that in having acceptance and compassion, treating myself with a lot of compassion, I can be like, I can recognize that even if I am all of these things, even if insecure is part of them, it still makes me worthy. It still makes me worthy of all the love. It still makes me okay. Like, it still means that even if I don't get everything right, I still deserve, love, compassion, second chances, forgiveness. I still deserve those things. So I got to give myself permission to not be perfect. I got to give myself permission to not get everything right. I got to give myself permission to fail, because then I'm also giving myself, just like if the pendulum, we were talking about, the pendulum can swing this way. If I give myself permission to fail, then I'm also giving myself permission to succeed. Right. If I give myself permission to burn to the ground, I also give myself just as much permission to rise to the sky. You know what I mean? And to be as to whatever the greatest expression of me is. You know what I mean? But acceptance means that you can swing into you can dance and tiptoe in either of those realms. If you can tiptoe in one, you got to be able. That means that there is a ability to tiptoe in the other, or you can dance in one, you can dance in the other.
So I really love that you said self-critical. That that really resonated. I received chills when you said that, and I don't know if that was you, or if that was you, or if that was just me vibrating my energy, or Asen. Yeah, but self-critical. Wow, and how important is it, even as like coaches, because we all coach people. The three of us right here. This is why we started a podcast, to help people find their inner self, right? How do we as coaches show and continue to aspire to have so much self-compassion that when we make mistakes, or we're embarrassed by flaws or non-perfection based on some of the insecurities we have, how do we like learn to not be so self-critical? And the reason it really resonated with me is because just over the weekend, or was it a couple of days ago, it was Andrea, Asen, myself, and Alicia, and we were in our bedroom. And I don't know how we got on the conversation. Somebody said I was competitive. And I was like, what? Me? I'm like, no. Because my interpretation of competition and being competitive is I have to be like comparing myself to other people. I have to be like competing against other people. And I was like, I'm not competitive. And then Alicia was like, Dad, you are. She was like, you strive to be the best, the most phenomenal in anything you do. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know that. And then Andrea, I think, had mentioned, she was like, babe, like, you're competing against yourself. And I was like, I'm like, every day I do it. Every day I wake up, I look at my calendar. Andrea knows the calendar is packed. I'm like, why am I doing these things? The values and beliefs behind what I'm doing. If I don't read, I'm really hard on myself. Like the other day, I was like, I didn't read yesterday, so I need to read 3 chapters today. Like, I'm falling behind. Like, I am critical on myself. Like, I am kicking myself to enhance my growth every day. And Alicia was like, Dad, like, you missed a chapter yesterday. It is what it is. Do it tomorrow. Enjoy your time with your family. And then I'm like, well, what if I don't do it tomorrow? She's like, enjoy your time with your family. Do it the next day. And I was like, well, when does it stop being okay to do that? And she was like, well, why does it have to be okay or not okay? Like, if it's important to you. I know she cold, right? Like, she don't. But she's like, you're so hard on yourself. She was like, you're like an incredible father, like an incredible community member, an incredible leader. You do incredible things, just like remember how I used to tell you, I was like, man, every accomplishment that I achieve, I'm just like, oh, it's a stepping stone. Oh, it's part of the process, you know? And you really helped me be like, man, like you really have to step back and smell the roses, you know, and you have to, it's important that you appreciate these. Come on, my everyday baby. You really have to appreciate these moments of success and have gratitude, you know, and grace, because if you don't, like, then what's the point of doing it all, you know? So I really, man, shout out to podcasts too, y'all. Like, we've had so many reflections and so many vulnerable conversations just based on the fact that, you know, we had different views on accepting it or not. And I know you've had individual conversations, we've had individual conversations. Like, this is just, it's just been beautiful. That's one thing I'm really working on. I know in the last episode you talked about what you were working on, but myself is like, you know, everything's going to happen, right? And you can do all things, you just can't do all things at once. So I'm working on, okay, I know how I'm working on myself every day. I know the time I spend doing that, and being less self-critical in the regard of my like growth and development. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and I was like, you know, if I baby all day and then I fiance all day and then I child all day and then I house all day and it's 9 o'clock and I've been up since 5 a.m, like I don't feel like accomplished. Like, I don't feel like I was productive. You're so funny. I don't feel like I was productive.
Where are you going, AC?
And she's like, do you realize that no one ever on their deathbed said, I wish I spent less time with family and more time working? She was like, you're a great fiance and you're a great fiance and a great, you know, father and a great business owner and a great coach. She was like, you know, those are beautiful days. Like, that's a beautiful thing. So why are you so hard on yourself? I'm like, man, because I'm so self-critical, you know, like maybe it's like based on my generational trauma, my generational affairs that have happened over life. Like maybe I still don't feel like I'm good enough, you know, like when people come to me, oh, we want you to do this. Oh, we want you to do that. Love this, love that. And it's like, why me? Why now? I'm still working on myself. But they see, you know, the 10 years, the 15 years of work that I put in, and they see the value and the impact that I provide. And I'm still like, man, every day being critical of myself. So I love you so much. Like, yeah, I love you so much.
I love you too.
Self-critical.
And now that you say that,
Yeah.
I was discussing with Andrew today how I just need to let go of my need to be perfect across the board. And it was very brief this morning, but I was like, oh my God, I want to be a perfect mom. I want to be a perfect supervisor. I want to be a perfect girlfriend. I want to be a perfect student. I want to be perfect. And I said, I just have to let go of that. The need to be perfect. And Andrew was like, well, you can start with that and let people step in to help you. And so that's what my goal is, to work on letting go of perfection and allowing myself to fail. That sounds so bad.
Yeah.
Fail.
It's important though.
Yeah.
It's so important.
I know.
Continue to elevate.
And also, like, I think about that, like what you're saying, like the perfect girlfriend, the perfect, you know, employee, the perfect mother, the perfect fiance,
The perfect writer.
the perfect writer, you know. And the thing is this, what even does that mean besides whatever your perception of it is, the perception or your reality that you impose on it, right? Because if you ask 10 different people, what does the perfect macaroni look like? Everybody's going to give you a different description. You're going to get a different recipe. You're going to get different bake times, temperatures, you know, all of that, right? Quantities, blah, blah, blah. You might be like, what kind of, should it be in a rectangle or a circle, right? Everybody's going to give you something different. So really, perfection is something that you made up in your head.
Yep, it's my standard.
It is your standard that you created, that you made up. It has nothing to do with reality. You know what I mean? It's not reality. It really is like a limiting belief, a self-imposed limitation that the only thing that perfection does is reminds you every time that I am not enough. You know what I mean? And perfection, it constantly reinforces this belief that I have to be somebody besides who I am, because I yearn to be accepted. And it's like, I yearn for acceptance, so that I'm going to be everything to everybody. I'm going to do it so much so, and it doesn't matter if I get lost and I don't know who I am. You know what I mean?
Hug. Okay.
I love this moment.
Don't make me cry.
Hey, you don't have to be perfect. You can cry on air.
I don't want.
Yeah,
I was
it's
already
beautiful.
crying.
No, it's beautiful.
Earlier.
And I would like to add on, because I'm having epiphanies, I'm having aha moments. I think based on everything that you said perfection is to her and everything that you said perfection is to you, I think I think we would all agree, perfection is your insecurity.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying?
That's being mirrored.
Yeah, I just got vibrations
And brought
from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the insecurity. So I feel like if you continue to strive towards something you're insecure about, you'll never remove that insecurity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But agreed or disagree.
Mm-hmm.
But if you start, like you said, you start learning how to fail faster, accept those failures, accept the fact that it's not going to be perfect right away, and it may never be perfect, you know. But the sooner you start accepting that, I think that's how you work on that insecurity.
And also, I'm thinking, instead of calling it failures, right? Because again, if a failure exists, then there must be a definition of perfection.
Or
So
success. Yeah.
it might not be failure. It might just be my authentic version is being shown. My true self is being revealed. And part of acceptance is coming closer into awareness of who you are.
Yeah.
And the further that you come into acceptance and understanding and awareness of who you are, the closer that you get to figuring out what you're supposed to be doing and what your purpose is on earth. And the faster you can start to do whatever that is, right? But the further that you go into chameleon mode, the further away you get from whatever your purpose is and the more lost that you feel. Like, and I'm like learning this in real time myself. Like, I'm like learning, you know, like that for a long time, I didn't believe in myself. And I'm realizing like the story behind those feelings, and we can talk about that another time. But I care more about quality than quantity. And if I say I only want people of a certain quality in my life, it does not matter who stays or who goes, because the right people who meet that quality will be there. And it's not like who meets the quality of whatever perfect quality. It's whoever meets the quality that vibrates in accordance with mine. But either way, even if they're not of that quality, I still have enough love and compassion and acceptance and understanding for whoever they are, because I see myself in everyone and in everything.
I love that you are so talkative, and I love that when we said failure, right? The comparison is like success and failure, right? It's all in the eyes of the beholder. You know, success is in the eyes of the beholder.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for the people out there that are working on not being perfect and accepting that their imperfections, I talk about this with Back to Basics, the Teenagers with Back to Basics program. I talk about this with Pancake Cafe team. Like, when they come to me and they make a quote unquote mistake, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm like, no, like, I appreciate that. I received that. No need to be sorry. It's simply a growing moment. It's a learning moment. You know, like we're going to take this moment and we're going to learn from it. You know, and we're going to guide each other in a direction that we mutually want. So I think for those perfectionists out there, it's very critical when you identify imperfections. You retrain your thought process, right? Because you're still gonna have those emotions and feelings behind it, but you retrain the thought behind, this is a growing moment for me.
Right.
This is a learning moment for me. You know, because growing and learning. Oh wow.
Yeah.
I want to grow and learn every day. You know what I mean? I want to be imperfect every day. You know?
And as we are.
Yeah, perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's strategy.
I love it. I think for our viewers out there, we might have to have an acceptance part 3. I'm just saying. You know, this is at your core communications at your finest. You know what I'm saying? Big shout out. Can we give a round of applause to Jason Haifman?
Hey,
Man, he's been killing it. He sees the raw, authentic version of each and every one of us, and he hears our debates and our conversations before and after the podcast. And I think that, we've told him this, but I really appreciate that, Jason, like taking time out to like listen to us and hear our views and our beliefs and our emotions behind things. And, he really goes out of his way to do that. And the proof is in the pudding, when it's all said and done and they get the episode on Tuesday. So,
Well, I'll say this one thing for as far as the language.
yeah.
One of the things that I learned in my career in leadership was when we would coach people and we would use the language as wins. Like when I would meet with my regional, I would present to them what my wins are. Here's what my wins are. And I would brag about myself, right? Like, hey, I got my team doing this. We're excelling at that. We didn't turn this major operation around. And then I would talk about my areas for opportunity, right? Here's my areas of opportunity, right? Like I think people in like, corporate and stuff like that, understand, y'all know that, right?
Yeah.
Wins and areas for opportunity, ops, right? And so then I would speak to the areas that I'm working on developing in my own self and my leadership. And so I think if we looked at it like that, like if you are interested in removing language such as language that's limiting, such as perfect or imperfect, because again, perfect and imperfect are really based on fabrications in mind, but wins in areas of opportunity turns it more into strategy. And if you look at your self development as like an operation, or if you look at relationships as operation, or people look at marriages as businesses, then it's like, well, every single area in your life, you have to have a strategy. And we have strategies in parenting. You know what I mean? So if you talk about wins and ops, then it's like, okay, so in this area of my life, here's my opportunity for growth, right? You know how they say like an optimist sees an opportunity, a failure in every situation or something, and then the optimist, did I say pessimist first? And then optimist sees a opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, hey, this is a really exciting thing. I can learn here and grow. This gives me practice. I can practice on this.
I'm laughing because I love when you said opportunity. Because remember, I was having that conversation with you, and you're like, call Keena because you're the opportunist, and y'all the entrepreneurs. And then I called you, and you were like, boy, and I'm like, and I'm like, yeah, we definitely some opportunists.
What was it?
Off air, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we killed it. Remember, we were eating Chinese food. We was on the phone for like an hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when the food
you remember?
came.
Yeah. Remember why I called you?
Y'all were totally feeding off each other too. I was like, and that's why.
And really, that night, we'll talk about that night in another podcast. But I want y'all to hold us accountable. 6 hours, me and this one right here. I'm talking about 6 hours of shadow work, mutual understandings, acceptance. There was a lot of acceptance that evening.
That was right after retrograde ended.
Yeah.
I was staring into his soul. I was like,
So did I tell you how she was? Alicia and Asen were in the bedroom playing and laughing. Andrea and I are having the conversation bed to bed on each side of the bed. Anthony comes in like, Mom. And Andrea's looking like this at me. One hand on the bed like, not now, Anthony. I'm focused. Look, just staring. She was ready to pick, dissect every verb, adjective, noun. But yeah, another podcast.
And we woke up completely drained.
He called me that next morning. He's like, I'm exhausted from processing all of Andrea and I's what did you call it?
I don't know.
You called it something, but he was tired. He was tired that next day.
I'm recovering,
but it was great.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah.
Okay.
I think that wraps up.
Let's
for today.
tell them how to support us on the.
What do you call that? The platform that has all the platforms. What are you using for that?
Anchor. So you can catch us if you're listening to the audio version of this episode. You can listen to us streaming on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Amazon, if I didn't already say that, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. We are on all of the platforms wherever you like to stream from. If you like to watch the video version of this, catch us on YouTube. We have our YouTube channel. We also stream the episodes on Facebook, but the newest episode is always going to be on YouTube first. Follow us on Instagram. All the links are in the show notes below. Give us 5 stars. Rate this episode so that more people can find it. Share this with somebody who you think would love to benefit from this information. And tune in for the next episode, y'all. Shout out to the team.
Acceptance Part 3. I'll be back.